There are going to be sewer pipe collapses, sewer main collapses down in that area, and that could very well affect the folks on the hill. Paula says she's afraid to go to sleep because of the possibility of that. Does she need to put sandbags on them? I would say at any given time and moment that you have an opportunity to, I would say, reinforce one of those plugs, be it whether a sandbag or a heavy object that would be put on them, or like we talked about, several plumbers had indicated to us that you can take a 2x4 and put it on top of that plug and have it so that it is wedged against the ceiling with a board up there as well.
So it doesn't punch a hole through those.
That's right. So you have a very hard surface over a wide area that would take that pressure on. But that would be a good way of mitigating some of that stress, maybe about a sewer backup of sorts.
And something you said earlier that is, I think people to take a little bit of comfort in. There is no guarantee that those plugs are going to come off.
No, there's
in the right situation. That's one thing, but not everybody's going to have that happen.
And we talk about the extreme situation, but we're also trying to give you as much information as you can to help make the best decisions that you can, if in fact it would come to the worst case scenario by any means. Now,
and that's what I'm doing. I'm doing sandbags.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I'm doing. See if it works.
I plugged mine too, and I forgot to unplug them before I left, but I'm really not going to worry about it.
Yeah.
So
at this point,
no. The thing is too. I mean, it's actually a good thing that we left our drains plugged when we left, because obviously, if they weren't, all that flood water comes in. That would be going into our sanitary sewer system. So you would have flood water draining in there.
That's an interesting observation.
So in a sense, it was actually a good thing that we left them plugged. So we do have some video that John here helped us out with. Why don't we go ahead and play this? And he said that this was taken around 4 o'clock, John? Yep. Okay, so John took some of this video around 4 o'clock, and this was over at the 16th Street Bridge. We have never yet, in my experience, seen water this high on that bridge, simply because when it was constructed, it was made to have these really proficient pumps and things like that. So you can see that what happens when flood water inundates the sanitary, not the sanitary, but the storm sewer systems, it will actually back up to the point of a river level. So what you're seeing is then all of the low-lying areas, especially the underpasses, now unable to get that water out of there. The National Guard folks making sure that no one drives down into those areas, because that water would well surpass any single vehicle that would go down in there. This is 2nd Avenue, looking, I believe, to the east. Familiar with this area, and yeah, it's. That is very. This would have been about the same time, John, as we did our Black Hawk flyover. So this is about the exact same time and depth. And I believe right there, that's looks to be a Huey. That would be one of those one of the helicopters from Minot Air Force Base, not the North Dakota National Guard. The Air Force Base handles the Hueys, and the Air National Guard handles the Black Hawks. You can see just the disgusting color of the water. It tells you exactly how unclean flood water is. It's not that nice, pristine color. If people were getting seepage in their house, that is a filtered water. The ground does a great job of filtering water when it seeps in. Flood water, on the other hand, picks up everything that is on the ground that spills out into it once it's inundates something, and then the sand, the silt, and foulness of anything else on the ground. That's what's in flood water, and that's why you're told never to walk into it. And again, being escorted again by the North Dakota National Guard. And what are you riding in, John?
It's a 5-ton deuce.
It's a 5-ton deuce. How about layman's terms? For those I know what you're talking about, but this is one of those big elevated National Guard trucks that's got those big dualies on the back.
Correct, and you'll see a better shot in the water in just a few minutes.
Okay, so you're getting a street eye view, and this is driving down the 2nd Avenue towards that bridge that had been blocked off for some time. But even at 4 o'clock this afternoon, you could see 2nd Avenue. And there's actually a very similar 5-ton deuce behind. Is that correct? Okay, so that's kind of what you're riding in, but it has the open top, doesn't have the fabric. any vehicle, you know, that I would drive, or you know, even our small SUV Trailblazer wouldn't be able to do this. Probably a good 2 to 3 feet deep on the street level here, in the low spots at least. And a lot of this, I'm not sure if at this time this was breach or if this was backup.
Overtop.
It was overtop at this time. So about 4 p.m. you could see just how it was first filling up the streets. And streets are obviously made to take that storm water and run it off, getting up to a little higher elevation. But all the garbage and gunk that is just floating in the river, like I said, floodwater is anything but clean water. You can see one of the National Guard Humvees able to drive through much more than any of our regular vehicles. And this certainly a tough sight to see for any homeowner. Water that certainly has filled the basements, overtaken the garages. You can see the street and the home address right there. The garage is now also pressed with, the other thing with floodwater too is it does provide a significant amount of pressure on buildings too. Just hard to even watch. Again, this is 2nd Avenue heading to the east towards the 2nd Avenue bridge that was closed off many weeks ago in an attempt to keep the Mouse River and its banks. And you can see the Mouse River essentially right near the top at this point. Do you know where it had actually overtaken it? Was it at this area that it was flowing into?
You'll see a huge waterfall.
Okay, so we're going to see where it had breached earlier at the 4 o'clock hour. And there it is. We're seeing the erosion of the dikes.
That's the little one.
Oh, that's the little one. Okay.
Little one.
You can see the erosion of the dikes. Once that water starts flowing it over, it really, and that was a great illustration of what happens to the dikes. Once that water starts flowing over, it quickly erodes those temporary levees that are not meant to withstand, and there it is. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And as that flows, it continually flows. That is when those levees start to deteriorate so quickly that now the homes are going to become river level. And this is also why we're watching some of our readings drop every now and again at the Broadway Bridge. I'm hoping he has chest waders on.
He does, and he also has a life vest.
And a life vest, more importantly, absolutely. Do you know why they're putting on life vests? Are they doing checks out there?
Their own safety, they're also doing 2-hour checks.
They're still doing checks out in these evac zones even after the floodwater has come in. That tells you the dedication of our Guard members out here helping us through this very difficult time. Yep, they're actually checking on the levee system to make sure that no one is back here, I suppose. No one's taking pictures, that the area is clear and clean of any people that still might be in the vicinity.
And you know, while they are wearing chest or hip waders, that water is not warm.
No, and take a look at that. That is one of those garden sheds. The pressure from the water has just crumpled it. And I mean, they're not really sturdy structures to begin with, but that pressure of the water just literally peeled off the side and the can itself. Yeah, definitely deep water. Do these deuce and a halves have snorkels on them as well?
I don't remember if these do or not.
Okay.
One does.
Yep, and when we're talking about a snorkel, it's basically to keep the water out of an airtight engine, and that snorkel basically goes up to the side, and that's where the intake is for an engine, so they can drive in water that essentially would stall out any other vehicle. And this is actually the little cut across that I would use quite frequently to sneak over onto 16th. Drove this many mornings taking my son to daycare across this 2nd Avenue bridge. That is the level of the water at 4 o'clock. So you can see now that it has gone up substantially.
I mean, this was 4 o'clock. Just imagine how many more millions of gallons of water
Are now
over.
infiltrated and sitting in that area.
You know, every time that, oh, this isn't Steph, this is Jen. I would say every time Steph walks in, it's bad news. What's this?
No bad news.
More bad news.
No bad news.
Oh, no bad news. We like no bad news.
Oh, this is a clarification. Okay, Gene Glessing from Mulhall called and said the Blackhawks are owned by the Army National Guard, and the correction for me is the Air National Guard has the Predators, which is a different helicopter. Thank you for the clarification.
This is in Oak Drive,
This is on Oak Drive.
behind someone's house.
Okay, behind someone's house. We're doing more checks to make sure that the area is clear.
Where is Oak Drive?
It's right off the second, right across basically from West Oak's pet hospital, or pet.
Oh, so it's out by 16th Street,
It's
by Harley's in that area.
Same area.
Yep.
Okay.
And this is another area of a breach, and you can see how the water has overtaken. And this is one of the original levees that was built after that '69 flood. This is not a temporary levee, so this is a grass-laden levee, and the water just pouring down with a tremendous current.
The current is extremely fast. I was actually standing in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
It will knock you over if you're not sure-footed.
So you can see that it wasn't just even the temporary levees, but even our permanent levee system in Minot, not up to Mother Nature's standards any longer.
I will tell you that we have National Guard people in Bismarck. Bob Hamilton is watching this live right now, and he appreciates seeing his fellow North Dakota Guard soldiers helping Minot. So.
And here is the water coming right over the sandbags. And I know a lot of these sandbags were actually added on that final day on Monday and Tuesday before the evacuations were called in an attempt to basically just give us more time, us as homeowners, more time to get our belongings out of our homes. They were sandbagging across the river from me on Tuesday morning as the river was rising, not in an attempt to keep the river and its banks on a permanent basis, but to give us extra hours. And again, that was the National Guard doing that for those of us in Minot. And another question that I had answered, sometimes we rely on those who have been there, done that, and driven some of these. That is unbelievable to see that. But Cass says that the truck is an M939. The air take is mounted near the cab. So that is why a lot of these vehicles are allowed to drive through this water. And again, you can see that this is why we have seen river level drops in Minot.
Because that's not going to the gauge. I mean,
It's not
simply. That's
there is
it.
a significant amount of water that is no longer going to the gauge. It is now filling in every low area within Minot.
And this was 4 o'clock this afternoon. And it's only gotten worse.
Yep, and that will be another, I think, a terrifying picture when we take to the air again today to see what now has been lost.
You know, when the sun comes up and those webcams are able to work a little bit better for us. Wow, I don't want to say I'm looking forward to seeing it because that's not the right phrasing, but I mean it's going to be disturbing when we start getting those pictures in when the sun's up.
And Stephen is asking, this was shot at 4 p.m. today, and why are we just showing it now? Well, the problem we had is all of our high-def cameras, our station cameras, were in use today in other needs for our press conferences and all this. And John was good enough to go and get a different camera that took a significant amount of work to transfer this to arable video. So this is why this has now just been being shown. So appreciate all the work that John did for us to get this to a format that we can use. Because we can't always just take home video camera and put it into our computers now that are high definition. Burger King on 16th Street with the Arrowhead Shopping Center. You can see all the clay dikes that have been put up in an attempt to hopefully withstand what is to come for the Mouse River here at the Arrowhead Shopping Center.
And just for a point of giving the Burger King a little plug here, I have lunch there every Thursday. Every single Thursday I eat lunch there.
And what are we looking at here now?
They were entering the evac zone, and when they saw the Humvees, they turned around and ran.
Ah, okay, so these were people who were back into the evacuation zones and essentially were scared out of there by the National Guard units.
Did the police go find them?
They,
Oh, okay.
they left
Don't
the
know.
evac zone at that. And here's another area.
This is that CDON drive that I was at.
This is right across from my house, actually. My house would be kitty corner to the,
other side of
yep, to the other side.
I'm
And,
going to give John my microphone. How's that?
yeah, why don't you do that? Or grab the sports mic.
Sports microphone. We're a big budget operation. We have 3 microphones in here.
And this was actually one of the areas of great concern when they initially started building up flood protection in Minot earlier in May. That this is where the HESCO barriers were placed. The HESCOs at one time had to be removed, and that's when they brought in this temporary levee. And you can see that it's eroding it from now the back side, and it's only a matter of time until enough is washed away that it just gives out entirely and breaches.
Right, and it's, if you could hear the sound, it sounds like Niagara Falls.
With the river trying to, and this was a picture that was put on Facebook not too long ago. It says, refuse to leave, the skeleton on the top of the roof. Just absolutely amazing. And this was, and this is actually built right up to what is the permanent levee system. This was an area that was lowered sometime after the 1969 flood. They came in and built all these levees up. That is the old 8th Street walking bridge you can see there. After the 69 flood, these levee systems were built up, and after the dams were built, it's my understanding that certain areas were lowered for drainage purposes. So when the water started to rise, we had to raise all of our low spots in the city's dike system to try to accommodate those low areas and try to fix those low areas.
Well, it's definitely draining.
And this kind
You're
of
right, it is draining now, and not the drainage that any of us had ever hoped to see.
This kind of gives us an opportunity to answer Eric's Ochsner's question. Wants to know about the CFS at the bridge. Has it changed? Well, actually, yes, because of the video we just saw. The water's leaving, and so we're not getting that super high rate into the gauge right now. Because it's going over the city. Is that it? I didn't mean for him to bail out of that.
There was maybe only a few more minutes left. I don't know. If
Okay,
there was-
can we go back to that
Can we go
video?
back to the-
if it's
yeah, I
still
wasn't trying
rolling,
to
I would
bail
like
out
to
of it there.
definitely get through all of that video. That was it.
That was
okay.
it.
Well, thank you so much, John. I appreciate it. I know it took a lot of work to get that transferred. A huge pain with the great thing about technology is it provides a great picture, but it's not always accommodating to some of the other video. So
It almost wasn't worth it. For
No,
almost 12 hours later.
I think for a lot of people who live in those areas, especially myself, and people, when we talk about a dike being overtopped and what it does, I think it's a great explanation. And if nothing else, provides a little bit of closure for some of us.
And I can promise
I
you,
can't say thank you enough. Thank
You're
you.
not sitting in front of Facebook. I am. People appreciate that. And
Yep,
you did a nice
absolutely.
job. Also, you know, this is absolutely right. Cassie Ray Bell kind of got us here, Shaun, and she's right. It says you guys are, you know, doing a nice job talking about the National Guard and all they've done and not taking anything away from that. But what about the Minot Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, the firefighters, ambulance crews, for them putting their lives on the line? You know, I missed on that one.
Well, and sometimes we take that for granted because people take it for granted that it's their job to do that. But in great duress and extreme times like now, yeah, it can be overlooked very easily. And thank you for pointing that out.
Because we know they're always there.
They are always
We
there,
never
and
think about it.
we certainly appreciate the work that they're doing and continue to do. And it is of no consequence. And I feel, you know, I certainly won't overlook that again. But yeah, there is an army of individuals who are working around the clock, very long hours, to make sure that all of this, at least all of us, stay safe. And that's the important part. As I was talking with some of my family, as we found out that our house was starting to flood, and it is an emotional time when you find that out. It kind of hits you in a moment where you realize that, yeah, you're losing your house at that moment, that all that hard work is now literally being sucked under And it was at that point and moment that I put it in my own head and put it into perspective that, and it's difficult to do so, that we managed to get out. We managed to get a lot of the most precious things that we hold dear out, plus I would say the non-essential stuff, but we had time to do it. But in the end, it's all material. And we got out what's important, and no one was injured in any of this as of yet, and I hope no one does. But we got out with what's important.
You know, we've had stories throughout the day, people telling us about, I had, you know, how their children are reacting to this. And there was one earlier today, and I'll never be able to find it again, but it happened during 4 or 5 o'clock this afternoon, and she just said, my son walked in, like a young boy, I think, dropped down his knees and said a prayer for Minot. And that teared me up.
Yep.
How's Jackson doing? I mean, your son Jackson, how's he handling it? He's young.
Yeah,
How old is he?
He's 5 years old, and I think
Does he understand this?
I don't think he wholly grasps the magnitude of really what's going on. I think he's still just liking the idea that he gets an extended stay at Grandma's house. And we took our cats and they're staying in the garage, so he has permanent play pals out in the garage now. And I don't think he grasps the magnitude of this. My daughter Lauren, who's 12,
she's 12.
This is a very difficult time for our family, for my wife Carrie, and it's a difficult time for a lot of families. And even my mother and father-in-law, who live back behind Arrowhead, in a very, very emotional time for all of us. I think it's just the strength of others who are helping, lift everyone up who needs the emotional support right now. And we're seeing so much of that in Minot. We're seeing so much of that from strangers. And I think that's what it is that only makes us better through adversity, is the strength of others. When you need someone to lean on, they're the ones there to lift you up.
And it's always been a great city, and I've told this story before, but years ago we went on vacation to Oregon, and I always leave after the 10 o'clock news at the last day of the fair. Get in the car, drive, so that would have been Friday night. This is Tuesday. I'm in Oregon. My next door neighbor calls and says, would you like us to close your garage door? I left the garage open. And you know what? Our bicycles were there. The lawnmowers were there. The door that went into the house was, unlocked. We could have been cleaned out, but this is Minot, and that kind of stuff. I mean, it makes you proud to be here.
That was actually one of the hardest things to do, was to walk away from the house. We opened up all of our basement windows, and we opened up all the windows on our main floor, knowing that the water was going to inundate the house, and we didn't want the windows busting in. And in the end, I don't know if that's going to make a bit of difference as it is, but that was actually a hard thing to do, was to walk away with the side door open and all of that. And there was really nothing left in the basement and on the main floor. There was some immaterial items that we did put up on the second floor that we just couldn't take with us, that we resigned to the fact if we lose them, we lose them. But that's the way it was. We just didn't have the time and the manpower to get everything out. But in the end, that's all kind of a moot point. But I think we're going to take a break here. But I just want to read Kimberly's little message here. She says that we've been on her TV now 24/7 since this has began, and she says her little guy now calls us the Flood Channel.
Also, this is Tyler Schnaze. I hope I have the name right. Hey guys, my son just woke up and asked me, when can we go home, Daddy? I said the guys on TV will let us know. He said, can you have him say my name so he can be a celebrity? Ha ha. His name is Trevon.
Okay.
Trevon. So we did.
All right.
All right.
It sounds good. It's 4 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. We are inching our way towards what is expected to be much higher flows, and that could be coming in 3 to 5 o'clock hour. So we're going to take a short break. We're going to kick it to CBS for a few minutes. We're going to try to get a little more information, and hopefully talk with Eric Manlove and get some of his videos shortly. And we will continue with our live around-the-clock coverage of Flood Fight 2011 in just a few moments right here on KX News. And good morning. It is 13 minutes past the 2 o'clock hour. We are going to continue our live coverage of Flood Fight 2011 on KX News. We will, instead of be tossing it to CBS News now, throughout the evenings when we do take a short break, we're just going to be putting up our live cameras so you can continue to watch what is going on with either the dike building process over on 6th Street or what is going on Burdick, and possibly even on that 16th Street bridge, and or our other live cameras on top of the Holiday Inn Riverside. Again, we are marching our way towards that 3 o'clock hour where the National Weather Service has indicated to us that we will start seeing substantially increased flows from those releases from Lake Darling that are going to be ramping up to that 1557 mark towards that 3 a.m. hour. And we now have actually been dropping. We were at 1556.01. At 1556.07 rather, and we have now gone down 0.6 of an inch. And what is going on there is actually more levees are being topped because of the river coming in faster and higher. So in a sense, the river is now filling in the western edge of Minot, and once those areas are filled in its entirety, we will start seeing those levels go back up. So in a sense, we are flooding out west of Minot.
Yeah, so
those
that's not a
areas
good
are now just taking on a tremendous amount of water. We had a Facebook question earlier asking, so how much water is in Minot? And truly, there is no way to put a number on that. We can tell you that a good majority of the areas in western Minot, with the exception of, I think, maybe some of the elevated areas, but the evacuation zones, the inundation map area that indicated where water will be when the sun comes up, I think it's going to be a tough sight to see for many people.
Something that when we looked at the new inundation maps earlier today, the ones they just released, and I live up by the softball diamonds in Minot, and I'm on 12th Avenue Northeast. I think the water now, the new map had it 11th. Now, I'm still way up a hill, so I'm safe, but it just boggles my mind the water could be up past University, up to 11th Avenue. I think that might be a worst case scenario, but it just boggles my mind there.
And this is again our live camera that is on the I-Keating parking lot, kind of behind in that loading bay area. And a nice shot with a little bit of the street light reflection through some of the trees. And again, there is so much growth down in the valley that really is the challenge of trying to get a view of the river at any certain point, because literally our valley is so lush with large canopied trees that the river is normally well hidden unless you're right down into the valley. And unfortunately, we can't be anywhere near it with our live equipment because that's in the evacuation zone, because those areas are going to flood.
You know what we haven't done for a while is done weather. And the reason I'm going to point this out is as the sun is coming up, let's go to the radar. There's a band of rain showers that are now moving into western North Dakota. And I'm going to zoom it down just a little bit here, Shaun, if that's all right with you.
By all means,
so we can kind of get a little better idea. And I have not been doing a whole lot of weather stuff, so I apologize for that. But we have a chat room set up with the National Weather Service, and they have indicated that they expect this rain to stay together till it gets to Highway 83. Well, guess where that cuts through? So, and that'll be here about sunrise is the way it looks like. And now where you're seeing the yellows on the radar there, that would be some pretty heavy rain. They were severe thunderstorms. They're not any longer. But it does look like, to add insult to injury, this morning as things are really starting to get even worse, it may be raining a little bit. So Mother Nature's really got it out for us this year.
It seems to be one of those instances where we just can't get away from the water. It really is a different kind of ordeal that I think is going to rewrite our ideas in Minot and living next to a river and taking our safety and security from it for granted. And we will have to reevaluate, I believe, what it is to have flood protection in the Magic City. The authorities were ordering many more evacuations when the news came out today about the increased river projections. that the Lake Darling Dam would raise the Souris another 2 to 3 feet beyond those earlier projections, and that meant a lot more folks were having to leave their homes and were being forced to evacuate, and some of those to evacuate again. And Kate Shell went out into the Jefferson Mobile Home parking lot where some of those people were trying to evacuate within only a 24-hour time frame.
As officials were figuring out what the new release numbers meant for Minot, residents living just outside of the evacuation zones were figuring out their next move.
We're going to see water that we've never, ever, I mean, the state's never, ever seen before. I mean, what do you do? I'm good.
Jeremy Labor is helping one of his best friends move out of the Jefferson Mobile Home Park. A quick look down the street and you'll see he's not the only one packing things up.
So shorts and underwear and sandals, tennis shoes.
Terry Rice is packing up her home, but not just all of her belongings. Friend Chad Fenner has been crashing at her place for the past couple of days because he's already had to evacuate his own home.
Hey, could you grab your bag and stuff over there for me? You start out thinking, well, all right, well, you got to do what you got to do. So you do it, and then you get somewhere where you think you're going to be safe, and then it's like, well, no, now you got to go again. So, you know, you just keep creeping up the hill and hope for the best and kind of deal with it like everybody does. There's not a lot you can do.
Just down the street behind me, water is already starting to creep up, and homeowners say that if the water would have made it to the 7 feet mark, it would have arrived right here. But now they're unsure what this new 3 feet increase will mean for this area.
You should start calling this Lake Minot.
The suspense is almost worse than the actual event because you sit here waiting for it, waiting for it, waiting for it, and the numbers keep changing. They're up, they're down, they're up, they're down. So it's like, just get here already so we can deal with it and then start the cleanup.
In Minot with KX News, I'm Kate Shell.
More evacuations, and we're starting to see the need for that right now. Now, this morning, Jim Olson went out into the Teresita Vallejo area where the evacuation order went out even earlier for most as the river was starting to inundate those areas. And Jim went along for one final ride as Mr. Moe was attempting to, I guess, get back to his property one last time. Here's a look.
Back in here is where the Dead River Channel is backed up, where the release is, and the Dead River Channel is closed now. Currently, the dike that they built up on the south side of the property is letting go.
This is what it looks like when a dike lets go. This is on the south side of Wayne Moe's property, a huge 50-foot section of the dike built along the Teresita Vallejo development being washed away by the Mouse River. And so now the only way Moe can reach his home is to hop into his front end loader and rumble through a growing water hazard on his driveway.
It's dividing in between my pasture and the Dead River Channel.
The water that's rushing over this spot in the dike is rushing in to fill the area that sits below its level, pretty much the entire neighborhood. It's a situation that's expected to be repeated throughout all of the river valley, in Minot and everywhere else, from Saskatchewan, where the river enters North Dakota, to Manitoba, where it exits. On Wayne Moe's property, the new and growing waterfall began as a trickle on Wednesday.
It started approximately about 1 o'clock, about like that. And over the period of the last 12 to 24 hours, it's turned into this.
There are more of those trickles developing in the dike system in Teresita Vallejo on both the south side of the neighborhood, such as here, where the sandbags on top of the levees are starting to fail, and here on the west side, where water from the Mouse is rushing to fill in low spots. For the people of Minot, this is a sample of what's to come when the rising river begins to win its battle with levees and sandbags and begins turning the river valley in Minot into a massive lake. Here are some in-town examples of where levees have failed as well, allowing homes to flood. These homes are just off West Burdick on 5th and 6th Avenue. Water has been slowly rising along these streets, floating children's toys and trash left out for garbage pickup that never happened. It's repeated here on Maple Avenue. Watch the trash in the distance floating across from left to right, and notice the level of the water on the mailboxes. Now imagine what it would look like if the current projections pan out and there's another 10 feet of water on top of this. A thought almost impossible to conceive of, and yet it's what officials say we in the Magic City are about to face in the coming days and weeks. In Minot, Jim Olson, KX News.
And again, you can see even then, early this morning when Jim Olson was out, all the different views of what is to come. And again, I think once we start seeing a little bit of daylight, it only being 23 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock, we are going to see a whole new Minot when we wake up and open our eyes to some daylight.
Couple things here. Derek Lindstrom had a nice little observation, not nice, but the observation would follow yours. Really don't want to see the sunlight, because then we would be able to see everything else that's going on, and that's not good. Also, I had a question, you know, when we're trying to figure out how much water is coming into town, somebody asked, why not use the Boys Ranch to find out? On one hand, Travis, I'm not sure if you mean the Boys Ranch, and if you do, as opposed to the Boy Scout Bridge, the Boys Ranch doesn't have a gauge there that we can at least access that we know about. And the Boy Scout Bridge, it's a different situation there, because the Boy Scout Bridge, the water is spreading out, and so I mean, they're going to have a 3-foot rise, we're going to have a 10-foot rise, whatever.
And on top of that, I'm pretty sure that it would just be the USGS that would be going out and taking manual readings, and to this point, that area would take such a significant amount of effort and probably a fan boat to get out there, and they're taking their readings from that Boy Scout Bridge just northwest of Minot and the Broadway Bridge and those gauges. So we do know that we have a significant amount of water that's headed this way, and that's based on the outflows from Lake Darling. We do know exactly what's coming. We do know for a fact what's coming because of those outflows, and I will go over those really briefly here. There was 18,000 CFS as of noon Thursday. It is now Friday morning. That is going to 22,000 CFS today. They are ramping that from 18 to 22 today, and then by tomorrow it will be up to 28,000 CFS. So we really don't need to take those measurements from, I would say, periodic locations, because those outflows is what is heading for us in that sense. Somebody had asked how the levee at the Broadway Bridge was holding up, and you can see even at this hour, they have been working on this now for about 48 hours straight on this secondary levee system in the very vast attempt to keep Broadway open, this very vital artery. And Tom, we talked about this in the newsroom earlier today. There is such a bottleneck of traffic right now on the 83 bypass. That is a 2-lane highway. If we could keep Broadway open, we're talking about a 4-lane, and we would essentially take the turning lanes out of the equation, because there's nowhere to turn.
Right.
It is just up and back. And then somebody asked the question, well, would that be open to all traffic if we have such heavy river flows? Begging the question, if it was compromised and it was a busy traffic hour, you know, would that put lives into danger? And that's a question I don't know. That is a question I think that we will again have to address to city leaders, if in fact we can get this Broadway dike system built up enough to withstand this new crest of 1564.5.
If we could go to the Facebook picture here, Piper, Jennifer Thorgrimson has some pictures from, it's like a yesterday and today, 24 hours apart. And I'm not sure, it's at the top of the Facebook, I think. Oh, it's by the library. Oh, it says by Jenna Lynn Johnson. Jen posted them. So I think Jenna Lynn Johnson took the pictures, I'm not sure. I think so. So if you could pull those up, we'll have a 24-hour, you know, side-by-side picture at the library. So it'll take just a minute to get to those as we watch this is Broadway Bridge, right? That is correct. That is the Broadway Bridge.
That is the live shot that our engineers are manning around the hour now. And I do have to say again, thank you. We talked about this yesterday, that for every one of us you see on air, there's about 6 or 7 people behind the scenes. Our sales staff is now coming in overnight and helping answer some of the questions, taking some of the phone calls that are continuing to come in at all hours of the day and night. And then our engineers who are manning our live truck that has to be manned at all hours if we want an HD picture of Broadway that we can zoom in and move on, because The other streaming videos are just the stationary cameras. They're a low resolution. Not that low resolution is bad, but certainly the HD pictures kind of paint that very clear, vivid picture and work a lot better in low light hours as it is now, so early in the morning. But this morning is proving to be that it is a vital moment, I believe, in, I would say, the flood fight that the primary dikes have lost. So it, in that sense, I feel it really important to have this HD picture up here live and rolling throughout the evening right now.
I'm looking. I think I sent them to the wrong spot. That was my own homepage, my own Facebook page. So we'll have to find those. I can hear him looking. Got it. Normally they can read our minds. I was sending her to the wrong spot.
Okay, so here is the side-by-side picture from 10 p.m. on Wednesday to 10 a.m. on Thursday. Now it is a little bit wider shot on the Thursday. You can see a little bit more of the library, but it doesn't really change the fact that look at all the water. Look at the ridiculous amount of water that has absolutely filled the 6th Street underpass over by the Minot Police Department and over by the Minot Library, which is why that secondary levee was being built to protect those facilities. A tremendous amount of water. Just really almost hard to grasp, really.
We're getting I had a post here, and then I don't see it on the radar, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. Well, I didn't see the picture up, so this is 24 hours apart. I was doing some weather stuff there.
This is the 24-hour picture that is apart right here from, again, that 10 p.m. on Wednesday to that 10 a.m. It's not 24 hours apart,
12.
It's 12. Yes.
12 hours.
It's essentially when we went on the air Wednesday night, and we talked about, if you remember, we weren't sure if it was storm water backup that was coming in. So within 12 hours, one of those levees had breached, or water had gone over the top, and that's what the next morning was 12 hours later.
Well, thanks for sending in the picture. And this is such a good time to be sending in pictures, only if it's from someplace that's not in an evacuation zone. I mean, you've gone sompace you shouldn't, because we don't want to do that. Getting back to weather a little bit.
Okay.
I'll wait. Can we wait?
There's one more picture, because we've had this asked many times, and I haven't been able to find a picture as of late, but someone has just posted one of the Mouse River Park photos that was taken out and that is just up essentially just to the north and to the west of Mulhall. If we could grab that picture even too from Mouse River Park that was posted on there. This is one of the first areas that is going to be affected by the mouse after it comes past that Sherwood reading out of Canada. We'll take a shot of this live camera and we'll get that Mouse River Park picture up. Those crews are still continuing to roll. Just amazing. I can't say it enough. It is literally amazing the amount of earth that is being moved in an attempt to keep the water out.
And I'm not going to go off like I did last night on people saying that the fight's over, because obviously people are still fighting, and that's just perfect proof. I mean, to the last minute, crews are trying to save whatever they can of Minot. This is just unbelievable.
Yep. And here is that picture that was posted from Mouse River Park. The amount of water that has infiltrated the park, gone over the levees there. And I was actually down at the Mouse River Park not too many weeks ago. It may have even been a month ago or so, when the initial thought was that there was the possibility of flooding. And there was some rainwater backup on the one road we were able to drive into, but a very pristine little park. Many people are so proud to be able to call that park their own, and even one of our switchers, Mike Heilman, who is evacuated out of his home in Burlington, also has a little lake cabin up here as well. So duly affected with what is going on with this Mouse River.
We just got Jason Stottle. He used to work here. And he's in Afghanistan right now, and he's watching us.
Well, hi, Jason. It's been a long time.